Um, Hi, and thank you for all of your time. It's been powerful already today. So we are part of a local nonprofit by the name of Early Childhood Partners, and we are here to talk about early childhood mental health. We are here to speak for those who can't speak for themselves, our youngest children. Thank you for allowing us to talk about early childhood mental health, where lifelong mental health or mental health problems often begin. Our favorite quote from Harvard is, "Most potential mental health problems will not become mental health problems if we respond to them early." We imagine that every person in this room can relate to that in one way or another. If I only knew sooner, if I only could have, if only someone told me, if only I could have afforded that. You've heard a lot about that today, unfortunately. If only that person was available where I lived. Some people may realize that very young children can show clear, some people may not realize that some very young children can show clear characteristics of anxiety disorders, ADHD, conduct disorder, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and autism within the first years of life. That said, young children respond to and process emotions and traumatic events differently from adults and other children and older children, making a diagnosis to inform intervention and treatment in early childhood much more difficult and more unlikely than it is in older kids and adults. But we know what to do. With access to the right resources, young children with mental health problems and their caregivers can get better, rather than enduring years of pain and declining mental health. We will tell just one young child's and family's stories in a moment and what could have been done, what was not done, and an all too common outcome for many reasons, mostly lack of financial means and access to the right services. And let's remember, we're talking about 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-old children here. System failure is evident from the onset of mental health problems, and even our babies are locked out of treatment and professionals who are equipped to help them and their families. Here's what we know. Early experiences shape the developing brain and lay the foundation of sound mental health, and disruptions in social emotional development can impair a child's ability to have healthy relationships with others, the first predictor of mental health. Learn to cope with their feelings and regulate their emotions, and learn, which all too often has lifelong implications. We can address the costly problems that lead to incarceration, substance abuse, homelessness, and the failure to complete high school early on by making sure families have access for help for young children that are struggling. But sadly, the specialized help needed is only available to a select few, and all too often determined by geography and how much money people have. When we think about the mental health of young children, we can't separate it from the mental health of their caregivers. And we know that to raise mentally healthy kids who need to support the development of healthy families, healthy childcare environments, we need to support the development of healthy families, healthy childcare environments, and healthy schools. Because if we don't, we will continue to see rising rates of toddlers, preschoolers, and young children with mental health problems, which often grows with each year of life. Let's look at a snapshot of where our youngest kids are today. 61% of children under 3 have at least one risk factor for poor health, social, or developmental outcomes. 1 in 6 U.S. children between the ages of 2 and 8 had a diagnosed mental health, behavioral, or developmental disorder in 2017. Data in 2017 and 18 showed that only 43% of kindergartners showed social emotional skills expected of 5-year-olds. Just to decode that, social emotional skills is a way of saying young children's mental health. We just kind of make it sound better that way, I guess. It's really about mental health. And things like ongoing and persistent challenging behavior is a mental health problem in young children. With just less than half of our 5-year-olds demonstrating expected social emotional skills, I hope we all see this is a call to action. If our young children are not healthy, our community is not healthy, and it is time to act now.
Before we go today, we want to talk about a little boy. We could talk about a lot of little boys and girls. This little boy we'll call James. His story is not uncommon, but it deserves to be told. James is a 4-year-old boy who attended a local childcare program, and when his behaviors became too much for his childcare providers to handle alone, we got the call. Within the first 10 minutes of observing James in his preschool classroom, all of the red flags were there. Initial screenings and assessments were done by the childcare program and family, and all of the caregivers were concerned, and all of the caregivers were struggling. That was the dreaded moment for us as early childhood mental health consultants. What did we know this child needed? Something called a multidisciplinary evaluation. an evaluation that would provide the diagnosis needed to get James the intervention in his family that he and his family needed. The problem was James's very loving family did not have the nearly $2,000 the evaluation would cost. So we recommended the next best thing, a free evaluation offered in every county across the country. Sadly, persistent challenging behavior alone is rarely enough to qualify young children for services for many reasons. The biggest one being that early childhood mental health is not understood by many, if not most, professionals in our field. Thinking a lot about James right now. We don't have the funding or existing systems to treat mental health problems in young children, and that is only compounded by decisions about children's mental health or social emotional development being made based on an observation for an hour or two in isolation of peers and within their community setting, which is where young children show us that they cannot handle the everyday demands of life, like enduring a preschool without multiple and significant issues like trying to run away, hurting others, and being able to connect with adult caregivers. The adult equivalent of that is not being able to get through a day without hurting others, running away from anything demanding like going to work or a meeting we aren't looking forward to, and not having one positive interaction with another person. And in that analogy with an adult, is there any doubt that we would view James as a person with mental health problems? Surely not. So without the right kind of intervention for James and his family, why would we think he would get better? Back to 4-year-old James, we continued to refer him for developmental evaluations and do what we could, and he continued to be denied services because his behavioral problems were not enough to qualify for the services we have within our current systems. A few months later, James started kindergarten, and the first time he ran off campus was at kindergarten orientation. A few weeks into school, his family was told that he could not be at school for a full day because his behavior was too much to manage. James's father sat outside of his kindergarten classroom most days because he feared what might happen if he did not, and he was told that James might not be able to remain in the regular classroom if his behaviors didn't improve. After nearly 2 years of James and his family getting through each day the best that they could, not having access to the appropriate level of support for financial and geographic reasons, the family left the valley. We have not heard from James's family since he was 8 years old. But from the time they asked for support when he was 4, nothing besides getting through the day happened. No lifeline, no financial support to get help, no specialists in the systems we have available to us, just rapidly increasing mental health issues and a baby boy and his loving family in our small mountain community. We will never stop thinking about James and his family, and we inevitably meet a new James every single week. We hope that one day things will be different for young children and families because mental health problems in the early years can be treated and should never be a life sentence due to our neglect. Our schools aren't given the money or resources to provide targeted early childhood mental health and family support, and most families can't afford it. So when do we step in as a community? Thank you. We appreciate being with you all today.